Hello, welcome to our next mini lesson on circles. Today we are going to be discussing circumference. So circumference is basically the distance around a circle. So imagine that you had a toilet paper roll and you wanted to find the distance around the edge. So we're talking about this distance right here. That is calculating the circumference. And if you were just laying it out and measuring rather than using the formula, what you would do is you would slice it down the middle and lay it flat like this. And you could essentially see that you can use a ruler to calculate that circumference. So the circumference would be this edge right here. That's what they're measuring out. Now, this is very similar to finding the perimeter of a square or a rectangle or any other given shape. But circles, they have a special name. They're called circumference. So go ahead, pause the video, and I want you to take a couple seconds and discuss why do you think they call it circumference rather than perimeter for circles? Okay, so hopefully you guys were able to come to a conclusion is that basically, if you think of perimeter of other shapes, we're adding up all the sides, right? It's the sum of all sides. Circles, though, don't have any sides. So we can't really say it's the sum of all sides. And they also do have a very special formula to go along with it. So that's why circle has a special name when it comes to calculating what would normally be called the perimeter. It's a different formula, and there's that idea of there's no sides to a circle. So let's go ahead and talk about what is this formula for circumference. So the formula for circumference, we mentioned this last week in our video, is C equals pi times diameter. So diameter is an important part of the circumference. It's what you need in order to calculate the circumference. You could also say, well, you could use radius, but if you do use radius, keep in mind you will have to do pi times 2r, so twice the radius times pi. Now, circumference and diameter, they have a very special connection. And that is because basically we use the circumference and diameter to calculate pi. That's where the pi is derived from. So if we were to take the ratio of circumference and diameter, that is going to equal pi. It doesn't matter what circumference is, it doesn't matter what the diameter is. Anytime you take the circumference and divide it by the diameter, that will equal pi. Now let's talk about pi just for a little bit. Pi is usually rounded to 3.14. When we're finding approximate solutions, that is important to know that this is only for approximate. We all know that pi is irrational. We talked about that last week, meaning it goes on and on and on and on. It never ends. It doesn't repeat. It just continues forever, so it's irrational. But to do some calculations, we often have to round it, and we usually round it to 3.14. Another number that is often used for pi is 22/7. Again, this is approximate. It's not exact. And that's something to keep in mind, that whenever we're calculating circumference and even area for that matter, it's not going to be an exact amount. It's always going to be an approximate amount. So let's go ahead and practice. So let's say we have a circle with the radius. Notice this is radius, right? It's halfway through the circle of 7.5. What we would do is we would use the formula, in this case pi times 2 times r, because it's given us the radius, to figure out what that equals. So go ahead, plug in, we're going to plug in 3.14 for pi, and we're going to plug in 7.5 for r. Go ahead, pause the video and tell us what you get for this answer. All right, so you should have gotten 47.1 inches. Important to make sure we have our units of measurement. So we're talking about inches here. So that is the approximate form. Now, I will say that when you guys take the IAR test in March, they are going to also ask you for the exact form. So what does that mean? Well, since we can't use the actual number of pi to do any calculations, instead of writing a number in for pi, we're just going to use the symbol for pi. So, for example, instead of writing 3.14, I'm just going to write 2 times 7.5 times pi. I'm going to leave that symbol, okay? Whenever I leave that symbol, that is going to give me an exact answer. So from here, I'm going to just multiply 2 times 7.5, which is 15. So in this case, my exact answer would be 15 pi inches. So just keep in mind that when we're looking for the exact form, you are not going to plug any number in for pi. You are going to just leave it as the pi symbol, kind of like what we do with variables. So go ahead, stop the video, and I want you guys to talk about, well, what's the benefits of using the approximate form versus using the exact form? So hopefully you were able to discuss the differences or the benefits of each form. With approximate form, I will say that it's nice because it gives you a bigger idea of what the actual measurement is. Although 15 pi is easier to calculate and we use it when we need exact measurements, it doesn't really tell us the picture. It doesn't give us a big idea. The approximate form, though, does. The 47.1, we can kind of have an idea of how big that is. 15 pi, though, it doesn't really give us how big it is unless you can think in your head, what is 15 times about 3? So again, just remember that when you're calculating the circumference of a circle, you can use two possible formulas. First formula is pi times diameter, and the second formula is pi times 2 times radius. So just depending on what information they give you will depend on what formula you would use. So looking at number 1, again, we notice they give us the radius. So I'm going to use 2 times r times pi, so that's 3.14 times 2 times 3, and that equals 18.84 inches. And then for the circle 2, I'm given the diameter this time, so I'm going to use 3.14 times 16, which is 50.24 inches. All right, that's it for this lesson. Don't forget you do have to complete a short worksheet. It will be due next Wednesday prior to first period. Thanks and have a great day.